Petition Reddish North Station ticket office closures.
Thank you.
I beg to move that this House do now adjourn.
Question is that this House do now adjourn. Colin Lockhart.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Speaker, for the opportunity to address this most important issue today in this House, and I do so with the support of my leader and Deputy Leader, Right Honourable and Honourable Member of this place, who unfortunately have another prior engagement, and my DUP colleagues. Can I say at the outset, and this is no slight on the Honourable Member responding, but it is disappointing, yet not surprising, that neither the Secretary of State or the Minister of State are in this place to respond today. It once again shows a lack of connect with the issues that matter, and whilst the investment conference in Belfast is important, so too is this, the very foundation stone of our society, our children and their education. One thing I have learned in my time in politics: you mess with children's education at your peril. You don't meddle where parents are and should be first educators, and you certainly don't do it without consulting and engaging with parents, teachers and boards of governors. Parents in Northern Ireland are genuinely angry. They are fearful. Teachers are feeling vulnerable and fearful. This government continue on the track of potential wide-reaching changes to RSE teaching in post-primary Northern Ireland schools, with no consultation and little scrutiny, with no care for the devolution settlement.
And whilst this is imposing a regime of teaching on schools, would you agree with me that one of the most sinister aspects of this is that teachers who will have strong convictions about some of these issues will be forced by law to teach the subject, and teach the subject within the parameters set down by the government?
I thank the Honourable Member for his intervention. As a former teacher, he knows only too well the impact that this will have on teachers, and I'll move to that throughout my speech. I am proud to have stood in this House time and time again and been unequivocal in my opposition to these liberal and irresponsible agendas. I am proud to sit on these benches with my DUP colleagues who have consistently voted against the regulations. My party have and will continue to oppose them, unpick them, expose them for what they are, and can I pay tribute to my colleague Diane Dodds, who is our education spokesperson at Stormont, who has been doing a deep dive along with into the detail of the changes and exposing the wrongs of this latest RSE legislative change. So, Mr Deputy Speaker, we on this bench will be working with parents, teachers and boards of governors to ensure that our children and young people are protected, that teachers can exercise conscience and remove themselves from teaching something that they don't agree with, and that the board of governors have the flexibility and ability to protect the ethos of their school.
I thank the Honourable Lady for giving way, and she's giving an excellent speech. Does she agree with me that it's not only contrary to the spirit of devolution, because of course education is a devolved matter, to impose this on Northern Ireland, but also, given the controversies that have surrounded RSE in GB and the inquiry that the government has launched because of those controversies, it seems absurd to implement this right now when the inquiry is still ongoing?
And I do want to get into that in detail. The law on RSE in England changed 3 years ago, and since then, public has been building steam. Mistakes have been made. So much so, as you say, the government has had to bring forward its review of RSE, an external body to assist the Department for Education here in its review. But what concerns me now is the risk of these same errors being repeated in Northern Ireland. And I'm asking that the government take steps to ensure we have a credible approach to RSE in Northern Ireland, which parents, teachers, schools and our community as a whole can have confidence in. Unfortunately, this Secretary of State has got off to a very bad start with his approach to introducing these regulations, with the lack of consultation, scrutiny and the pretence of CEDAW being used to justify this move.
On that point,
Mr Deputy Speaker, I'll give way.
I thank the member for giving way. The member must have been delighted at the turnout of over 1,000 school teachers, boards of governors, representatives, political representatives in her own constituency last last night, campaigning on this issue of letting kids be kids. Isn't this the important message? As she's rightly said, interfere in our children at your peril. It will not be tolerated by people across the community in Northern Ireland, and it's not the message that the Secretary of State should hear loud and clear.
Absolutely. Parents, teachers, boards of government, they're angry, they're frustrated, they're really concerned, and that has been demonstrated through meetings that have been held locally in Northern Ireland. So, absolutely. Mr Deputy Speaker, I'm about operating in the realms of reality. I'm not about the platitudes in this or the throwaway lines that will be forgotten. I'm about protecting our children and the young people, and come asking this government to listen to concerns and make amends. The changes as per the Northern Ireland RSE 2023 regulations are deeply concerning. They will change RSE teaching in Northern Ireland in post-primary schools, forcing the teaching of contraception and abortion. This, coupled with the long-term agenda of implementing the RSE progression framework, has invoked so much anger and genuine concern. So when it comes to teaching about abortion, the government has sought to reassure us that it should take place in a factual way that does not advocate nor oppose a particular view on the moral and ethical considerations of abortion. But such assurances are impossible to deliver. The very fact of teaching about abortion is not morally neutral. It normalises it, presenting the subject, that is, the taking of innocent human lives at their most vulnerable stage, as a mere moral dilemma about which people may be free to disagree, whereas for those who are pro-life, human lives are at stake. Further, it diminishes the value of life, because if young people are taught about the legal availability of abortion and how to access it, they're more likely to do so in greater numbers, and we see that here in England and Wales since the Abortion Act. Indeed, the widely used sex-wise RSE resource in England and Wales even teach girls that they can go and do it privately without their parents knowing. Yeah. So much for assurances on parental consultation. This has also sought to assure us that education on so-called sexual and reproductive rights should be scientifically accurate. Again, I would point out that this is a cause of significant contention. For example, many people in Northern Ireland and many scientists would contend that an unborn baby is scientifically a human being. Our Choice website recommendation as an RSE resource in England and Wales asserts that before the limit of viability, the fetus is not considered a human being. Such a claim is highly contentious, and I would suggest is neither neutral nor scientific. Yeah. The point is that it is not possible to be neutral on this issue, where science and ethics are interwoven, and it is highly likely resources in Northern Ireland will therefore end up as in England and Wales. In short, these matters, which should be left to parents, not schools. RSE, I'm going to keep going. RSE is not just like any other school subject. I know it deals with issues on which there are a wide range of views and perspectives. It really is a highly sensitive topic that deals with very personal issues. Therefore, it is critical that parents, teachers, school governors across can have confidence that the regulations and the guidance now being recognise this. They need to know that the government will ensure schools understand the sensitivity of the topic and approach it appropriately and in a way the range of views that exist. Fortunately, in recent times it feels like there's one view that has not respected that of the Christian, that person who values respect others. The pro-life view, the view that if you don't want to get pregnant, don't have sex, the one that teaches faithfulness in relationships, the one that subscribes only to the fact that a boy is born a boy and a girl, and that there is not over 100 different gender ideologies, or that it is absolutely ludicrous that we can have people now identifying as cats, dogs and foxes. I say this, Mr Deputy Speaker, not to provoke. I say this because these are the views of the vast majority of people in Northern Ireland and across this United Kingdom, and unfortunately these views appear to no longer be welcome. Indeed, the vote on this amendment around RSE teaching in Northern Ireland took place on the 29th of June. The Secretary of State announced the result that evening in a speech at Pink News Belfast summer reception. Seriously, if you want to give stakeholders in Northern Ireland confidence that RSE will be balanced, not partisan, objective, not ideological and sensitive to the community schools it serves, it was an odd choice. Mr Deputy Speaker, the position of school governors must be respected. A major part of their role is to safeguard the ethos of schools and to ensure that the school serves its local community. To do so, they need a degree of flexibility and freedom to make decisions over the school's approach and policy. It cannot be dictated in detail from Belfast, still less Westminster. Indeed, a very large proportion of schools in Northern Ireland were not established by government, but by the churches and later transferred, not sold, into government's hands on the understanding that they would continue to education in accordance with their church foundation. Of course, I understand the government can now make law over education that takes place in these schools as it is now done over teaching on contraception and abortion, but teaching is handled in a sensitive and balanced manner that does not disempower governors in that important role. So that's my first ask, that school governors will have the policies in line with the school ethos. Most young people in Northern Ireland grow up to form healthy relationships. Many form the stable families that are so important to the upbringing of children, providing the care, personal knowledge and understanding that only a parent can give, safeguarding a right to be alert to those very tragic cases where parents present a risk of real harm to the children. But those cases are extremely rare. And certainly an exemption to the universal rule that parents make the best parents, not the state. Therefore, parents must be given the power to make the final decision. I'll give way quickly.
Honourable Lady, she's making an absolutely excellent speech, and I completely agree with her about the parents should have the final power to make the decisions over what is very particular and personal values to every individual family. But does she agree with me that part of the problem is that parents can't make those decisions because a lot of these materials are not available for parents to view, and therefore how do parents know whether or not they do want to exercise their right of withdrawal?
The Honourable Member makes an important point, and she has done an immense amount of work and speaks very educated on this issue, and you're absolutely right. Absolutely right. Parents should be at the heart of this. Absolutely at the heart of it. Therefore, parents must be given the power to make the final decision. The consultation currently open in Northern Ireland asks about balancing parents' and child's rights. With respect, that's not how it works. The reason parents have rights is to empower them to do their job of caring for their child. It is parents who are the first and best guardians of their children's rights, and therefore the role of parents must be guarded. At present in Northern Ireland, it is common for schools to allow parents to remove their children from RSE. It does not frequently happen because affording that ability to parents discourages schools from adopting radical and controversial approaches. Schools want to avoid pushing parents into making that decision, so where schools empower parents in this way, it builds trust and confidence on both sides in the school's delivery of RSE. Currently, the Education Department in Northern Ireland is carrying out a public consultation on rights of withdrawal. The plan emphasised in that consultation is to afford statutory right of withdrawal only from the new statement into the minimum content order. Therefore, narrowing the ability many parents in Northern Ireland have to withdraw from any part of RSE that they're concerned about, can I urge the Minister to ensure this does not happen? So my second ask is that guidance will not restrict parents' ability to withdraw their children from all parts of RSE of which they have concern. Now moving to teachers. Most teachers are highly professional, care deeply about their job, the children, families and communities they serve, and are conscientious in following school policy and instructions from school leaders. But teachers too have their own views and their own sensitivities. The UK Supreme Court have recognised no one entitled to express a view with which they fundamentally disagree. Yet regrettably, some of the teaching resources produced by SEA present as fact opinions which many teachers disagree with. And whilst there are safeguards built in currently allowing for ethos to be upheld by the Board of Governors, thus there's no clarity on whether these safeguards extend to the changes that will be implemented in January 2024. Quite frankly, when you do a deep dive into the resources and material that could make its way to children's desks, it's scary. It's worrying, and I want to put on record my thanks to many boards of governors and school teachers who have held the line and have resisted the forcing down people's throats ideologies that their parents and communities don't support. Therefore, my third ask is to make provision for teachers with conscientious objections to refuse to teach something they do not agree with. As I bring my remarks to a close, Mr Deputy Speaker, the statutory guidance for school that will be issued in January will be crucial, yet no draft of this guidance has been provided as part of the consultation, nor does the consultation provide any clarity on its scope or detail of its content. This is simply not good enough. Therefore, my fourth ask is that that's made available. So I stand in this place not just as a parliamentarian, I stand as a mum, I stand as a Board of Governor of 3 schools, and I stand on behalf of the people of Northern Ireland who do not support what has been done by this government, who want protections for their children and who want the classroom to be a safe space and not a space that forces on their children opinions and ideologies that are not in keeping with their views. As I left home this morning, I dressed my little boy for school, Charlie, aged 4. I entrusted him into the care and keeping of his new school, safe in the knowledge that the school he attends promotes and supports a Christian ethos. My nieces and nephews travel to most primary schools where a Christian ethos is upheld and the teaching of RSE is measured, balanced and does not promote some of the most bizarre and liberal views. So I do it for them, I do it for every child and young person in Northern Ireland, for every teacher and Board of Governor that wants to protect. Secretary of State, stop meddling, stop this agenda, devaluing life and radically change the very bedrock of our society, our children and their education. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Speaker, and let me start by thanking the Honourable Lady for securing tonight's debate on an issue she feels very strongly about. Mr Deputy Speaker, the Secretary of State is disappointed that he cannot respond himself, but unfortunately this debate has coincided with the Northern Ireland Investment Summit, where he is busy showcasing Northern Ireland's innovation and potential from around the world. As a result, I am making my somewhat improbable dispatch box debut. Mr Deputy Speaker, relationship and sexuality education for children in the United Kingdom is a sensitive issue, and I recognise and respect that there are strongly held personal views on this issue across the House. In responding for the Government, I seek to continue in the spirit of respect which has characterised the honourable members. Let me start by outlining why the Government has acted. Earlier this year, the Secretary of State for Northern Ireland laid the Relationship and Sexuality Education Northern Ireland Amendment Regulations 2023. In doing so, he was acting to implement the clear will of Parliament with respect to sexual and reproductive health education in Northern Ireland. When passing the Northern Ireland Executive Formation Act 2019, this Parliament, in a free vote and by an overwhelming majority, voted to impose a duty on the Secretary of State to implement in full the recommendations made by the United Nations Committee on the Elimination of Discrimination Against Women, CEDAW.
Could the Minister tell me what legal authority CEDAW, which is a committee of unelected officials from other countries, has over UK law, and in what other point of UK law they have the authority to tell us what to do?
I'm grateful to the Honourable Lady for intervention. The authority doesn't come from, it comes from the vote of this House in a free vote in an overwhelming majority to put that statutory duty.
Can I just ask the Minister to agree with me that when that vote took place, there was minimal opportunity for debate. There was confusion about the vote itself. And that is not a way to impose legislation on Northern Ireland from this place.
Well, given that the vote took place before I was a member of this House, it would be difficult for me to comment. I would only state that the vote was 332 ayes to 99 noes. I'm going to make a little progress, if that's okay. This legislation thereby placed a statutory duty on the Secretary of State to make age-appropriate, comprehensive and scientifically accurate education on on sexual and reproductive health and rights, a compulsory component of curriculum for adolescents in grant-aided schools in Northern Ireland, and to monitor implementation of this. This is a specific and unique duty which colleagues will recall also placed the government under a duty to establish abortion services in Northern Ireland. The regulations to deliver on this decision of Parliament were passed in the House of Commons by an overwhelming majority again on the 28th of June this year. My colleague, the Secretary of State for Northern Ireland, did not take the decision lightly to bring forward this legislation. It has always been the government's preference that, because education is a devolved matter, the Department of Education in Northern Ireland updates the curriculum themselves. The government gave them every opportunity to act, but regretfully they did not do so. It is widely acknowledged that there is a problem with how sexual education is being taught in schools in Northern Ireland. Indeed, a recent report from the Northern Ireland Human Rights Commission recommended that a standard level of RSE throughout all schools be introduced. Happily.
And he's now coming to the nub of the issue, because one of the criticisms was that people, when they were teaching it, also introduced some values in. And that was what the objection was, that you had faith schools, you had teachers who believed, because they were Christians, certain things, and they brought those values into their teaching. And these regulations are designed to prevent people from reflecting, and schools from reflecting, those values in the teaching and in the curriculum. And that is the crux of the issue, and that should not be the case in a free society.
I'm grateful for the Honourable Gentleman for his intervention. It's the view of the government that educating adolescents on issues such as contraception and access to abortion should be done in a factual way that does not advocate or oppose a particular view on the moral and ethical considerations of abortion or contraception. Mr Deputy Speaker, nearly 4 years have passed since the Northern Ireland Executive Formation Act back in 2019. Adolescents in Northern Ireland are still not receiving comprehensive scientifically action on sexual and reproductive health rights. Therefore, the government has acted to implement the will of the House. In implementing the decision of this House, the government has sought to ensure that education provided will be broadly in line with that already provided in England with regard to contraception and abortion. These regulations do this. The regulations passed earlier this year amend the curriculum for Key Stage 3 and 4 pupils, that's 11 to 16-year-olds. They make age-appropriate, comprehensive and scientifically accurate... I'm just going to make some progress, if that's okay. They make age-appropriate, comprehensive and scientifically accurate education on sexual and reproductive health and rights a compulsory component of the curriculum in Northern Ireland. This covers prevention of early pregnancy and access to abortion. In recognition that education in Northern Ireland is a devolved matter, the Secretary of State has sought to ensure that the Department of Education in Northern Ireland, as the experts, have led in determining the content and delivery of this education. The regulations place a duty on the Department of Education to issue guidance by the 1st of January 2024 and place a duty on the Board of Governors and principal of every grant to have regard to the guidance. As I noted at the beginning of my remarks, this government recognises the sensitivity of this topic. Some parents may wish to teach their child about sex education or make alternative arrangements for sex education to be provided in line with their religious background or their belief about the age that their children should access sex education. I'm just going to make this point, if that's okay. Let me assure the Honourable Member, in recognition of this, the regulations also place a duty on the Department of Education in Northern Ireland to make regulations about the circumstances in which a pupil may be withdrawn from such education or elements of that education at the request of a parent. This mirrors the opt-out approach taken in England and Scotland. I give way to the Honourable Gentleman.
He has used the word sensitivity on a number of occasions during his speech, but would he accept that advising someone on the killing of a child is one of the most sensitive issues that there could possibly be, and yet according to what the Secretary of State has said, according to what the CEDAW has said, and according to what these regulations will result in, any teacher who has a view, a deeply held view, that killing a child is wrong, will be prevented from saying so to the children who they're trying to guide.
Thanks, Mr Deputy Speaker. On the point of teacher opt-outs, it's important to stress that this will be a matter for the Department of Education in Northern Ireland, as they have overall responsibility for education in Northern Ireland. It'll be part of their consultation, which I'll be coming to in a moment, and the guidance which is published next year. It's also worth pointing out on teacher opt-outs that, if I could just finish this point, a large majority of the schools in Northern Ireland currently outsource their sexuality education to third-party providers. I give way.
Giving way, and Mr Speaker, thank you, Deputy Speaker, thank you for indulging me on this. I refer to his earlier remarks there where he said that the government recognised the sensitivity of this matter, and then also that some parents may wish to. I'm just wondering how he reconciles that then with the fact that
The proceeding has ended. The proceeding has ended.